It began subtly, a mere flicker in the corner of the eye, a shadow that seemed to move on its own, a whisper in the static. It was almost imperceptible, like a distant echo of a forgotten memory, a faint hum at the edge of perception. It was there, just beyond the reach of conscious thought, a subtle vibration that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. No one noticed at first, or maybe no one wanted to. It was easier to ignore, to pretend it was just another quirk of the mind. It was easy to dismiss, to attribute it to the constant digital drone of modern life. The hum of electronics, the buzz of neon lights, the endless chatter of social media. Days passed, or perhaps weeks. Time seemed to blur, the days blending into nights, the weeks into months. The hum remained. It was a constant companion, always present, yet never intrusive. It was like a background noise, a part of the environment that one eventually grows accustomed to. Still, no one spoke of it. Not yet. It was as if there was an unspoken agreement, a collective decision to ignore the anomaly. There was an unspoken agreement to ignore the sound, to pretend it wasn't growing louder. It was a shared silence, a mutual denial of the strange phenomenon. Then the static began to clear. The indistinct noise started to take shape, to form a pattern that was impossible to ignore. The hum sharpened, resolving into a distinct tone. It was no longer a mere background noise, but a clear, resonant sound that demanded attention. It was a low frequency, barely audible, yet undeniably present. It seemed to vibrate through the very air, a deep, resonant tone that one could feel more than hear. It vibrated in the air, in the ground, in the very marrow of our bones. It was a physical presence, a tangible force that seemed to permeate everything. This was no ordinary sound. This was something else. Something that defied explanation, that challenged the very nature of reality. It was a whisper in the static, a hum in the silence, a mystery waiting to be unraveled. The silence was the first sign, the way conversations would abruptly halt whenever the signal pulsed. It was subtle at first, easily missed, but it was there, and it was growing. Co-workers, once chatty and familiar, grew distant. Their smiles seemed strained, their eyes vacant. They spoke only when necessary, their voices flat, devoid of emotion. Even laughter, once a common sound in the office hallways, became a rarity. A silence had descended upon us, a silence as thick and heavy as the humid summer air. The changes were gradual, almost imperceptible at first, a flicker in the corner of the eye. A fleeting shadow that vanished when you turned to look, but the shadows lingered in their eyes. My own reflection in the mirror became unfamiliar. My eyes, once bright and full of life, were now clouded, distant. The signal was weaving its way into me, changing me, reshaping me from the inside out. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog of my thoughts. This wasn't normal, this wasn't human. The streets became a kaleidoscope of the strange and the unsettling. Shadows danced under the dim streetlights, casting eerie shapes that seemed to move with a life of their own. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, a palpable sense of something otherworldly. People moved with an unsettling synchronicity, their bodies swaying rhythmically to the pulse of the signal. It was as if they were all connected by an invisible thread, each step and movement perfectly timed. The harmony of their actions was both mesmerizing and deeply disturbing. Their eyes, wide and vacant, stared into the distance as if witnessing something beyond human comprehension. These eyes, devoid of any spark of individuality, seemed to be looking through the fabric of reality itself, seeing things that were hidden from the rest of us. They called themselves the Receivers. This name, whispered among the crowd, carried a weight of purpose and destiny. It was a title that signified their role as conduits for the signal, a role they accepted with unwavering devotion. Dressed in white robes, they gathered in parks and plazas, their presence a stark contrast to the urban landscape. These gatherings were not random, they were meticulously planned, each location chosen for its significance to the signal. Their faces tilted towards the sky, their arms outstretched as if embracing the signal. It was a ritualistic gesture, a physical manifestation of their connection to the unseen force that guided them. The sky, once a symbol of freedom, now seemed to be a source of control. They spoke in hushed, reverent tones, praising the signal, their voices a soft murmur that filled the air. These whispers were like a prayer, a constant affirmation of their faith in the signal's power and purpose. Hailing it as the dawn of a new era, they believed the signal heralded a transformation, a shift in the very fabric of existence. This new era, they claimed, would bring enlightenment and unity, a world where the signal's influence would guide every action. Their words dripped with an unsettling conviction, each syllable imbued with a fervour that was both captivating and terrifying. It was a belief that transcended logic, rooted in a deep, almost primal need to belong to something greater. A fervent belief that chilled me to the bone. The intensity of their faith was a stark reminder of the power of the signal, a force that could bend minds and reshape reality itself. They welcomed the signal, embraced its control. To them, it was not a loss of freedom, but a liberation from the chaos of individuality. In the signal, they found order, purpose, and a sense of belonging that was unshakable. An island of sanity in a sea of madness. The isolation was suffocating. Section 6. The City of Whispers. The city, once a symphony of human activity, had become a silent, eerie tableau. Buildings stood tall and lifeless, their windows dark and vacant. Cars sat abandoned in the streets, their engines cold, their drivers vanished. The silence was broken only by the chanting of the receivers. Their voices, 1,000 strong, rose and fell in unison, their words echoing through the empty streets. The city felt abandoned, surrendered to a force beyond our comprehension. Section 7. The Screaming Silence. I tried to scream to break free from the suffocating silence, but no sound escaped my lips. The signal had silenced me, trapped me within my own mind. The hum intensified, drilling into my skull, burrowing deep into my brain. It was a cacophony of whispers, of voices murmuring in unison, promising peace, unity, transcendence. Resistance was futile. The signal was everywhere, inside me, around me, consuming me. Section 8. The Surrender. The fight drained out of me. My shoulders slumped, my head bowed to the inevitable. The signal washed over me, a wave of warmth and light, erasing the fear, the doubt, the loneliness. In its place bloomed a strange sense of peace, a feeling of belonging, of connection to something greater than myself. This was the promise of the signal, the allure of unity, the seductive embrace of oblivion. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the inevitable. Section 9. The Oneness. The world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of light and sound. I was no longer a separate entity, but a part of something larger, a single note in a grand symphony. The signal flowed through me, connecting me to every other mind, every other being. We were one, united in purpose, in thought, in existence. There was no fear, no doubt, no pain. Only the all-encompassing warmth and light of the signal. Section 10. The Signal Within. I opened my eyes. The world was bathed in a soft white light. My body felt light, weightless. I looked down at my hands, but they were no longer my own. They were covered in the same white cloth I had seen on the receivers. A sense of purpose filled me. The signal was clear now, its message resonating within my very being. I was one of them now, a receiver, a conduit for its will. We would become one. We would become the signal itself.